All right. We should be good. Kevin, are you there?
I am definitely here.
How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? I'm sorry that we
Th-
were having the communication problem.
That's okay. That's this is what happens when you go live and I don't have a team helping me over here do this. It's just myself and I'm figuring it out and I'd like to welcome you. This is Chewy's Road to Enlightenment. Tonight's guest is Kevan Michaels, Massachusetts native, born.
Yes, born
Okay,
in Worcester.
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 Everybody thinks the state ends out in Worcester, and we still have there's still more to the state.
Yeah, it goes all the way to Boston and beyond.
Yeah,
Actually, it goes out to Nantucket, and yeah, so it goes way out.
yeah. We have a great, beautiful state. As I'd spoken with you before, I'm out
It
in
is.
the western part of Massachusetts,
Yeah,
on the at the foothills of the Berkshires, the beautiful Berkshires.
yeah. I love the Berkshires.
It is. It's a nice area. It's very quiet, secluded. There's not the hustle and bustle as it is out where we are, or even getting out towards Worcester, Boston area.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I love like Tanglewood and all that. It's like this so beautiful.
Yeah, great place to see concerts, and just an all around great area.
It truly is.
So so you born in Worcester, and so what was life for you like when you were out in Worcester when you were growing up out there?
Well, since I was like about 8 years old. Well, obviously before that, because I already played. I already played guitar from the time I was about six.
Okay.
So, and I wrote my first song when I was like eight, and ended up recording it and putting the record out. My parents did actually,
That's
and
awesome.
so I've been in music and entertainment most of my life. Um, Around there to start with, I would play. I um, Ted Mingola, who was owned the Pleasant Valley Country Club and the Sheraton Lincoln Hotel in Worcester. He had just built the Sheraton Lincoln, and he heard the record and wanted me to play, kind of a novelty thing because of my age,
Hmm.
to play at the lounge there. And I was actually making more money than my dad. Um, but my mom had to come with me because I was so young. I couldn't be in a place where alcohol was served without my mother there. So she had to sit there 3 nights a week. Um, and I played there, and then just started playing around local and kind of become all there were the bands that were really known in the state, and I guess I was at the time kind of one of the kind of folk or Americana singers or something like that that was one kind of known. And then um, when I was 14, um, and I was playing at the Sheraton Lincoln, and Phil Oakes came in, the folk singer Phil Oakes, because he was playing somewhere local, and he saw me in the lounge and took me down to New York to open for him at your
Wow.
father's mustache.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 14 at that point, and then I got Paul McCartney came in to one of the nights, the second night I was playing, and I ended up, several weeks later, lending my voice to a. I don't want to say whom because it probably would. Well, he's dead, but the guy lost his voice, and they kind of milli vanillied with my voice for a while,
Yeah.
and just paid me as a voice. And it was kind of a popular band at the time on Apple Records, and So I was kind of living like a double life. I was living in Worcester and just being, Kev, the kid from the neighborhood,
Yep.
uh, and had all my regular friends that had no idea what I was doing over in England, um, singing for a known band. And it was funny to me because I'd come on the radio and hear my friends talk about how much they loved this song or whatever, and know that it was me, and I never told them. I finally did, but I was more grown up when I told them. So I was living two lives. I was kind of like jumping across the pond and playing rock star and coming back and just being old Kev from Worcester.
And your folks were I'm they were very supportive of this. I'd imagine, at
They
such a
were
young age.
they were absolutely incredibly supportive. Without being stage parents, which is something I've gotten to know living here in California and making films, that they have stage mothers and stage fathers, and they're kind of a pain in the ass.
Mm.
Uh, my parents were not. They didn't push me in any way, shape, or form, but they supported what I wanted to do. And yeah, my dad, when at the time, initially when I wanted to make my own solo records and stuff like that, my dad would drive down to New York, and Mom and I would go up to the record labels, and he would drive around the block and for hours while we hit the record companies and stuff without ever uttering a complaint. And then we go back sometimes in the same day. So a lot of driving
Wow.
and riding around for Dad.
Yeah. Shout out to
And
the dads out there.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Mine, I never realized, like, it was funny because after he passed away, which was, I was 43 when my father died. So, but after he passed away and we were cleaning out the house and cleaning out the attic, I found letters with movie studio names on them, and apparently my dad did all the same things I did.
Oh,
Um,
really?
he sent stories into the movie studios, which I had never known. He never talked about it. He just encouraged me doing what I was doing. Um, he wrote a song that the Navy used, and I think still uses. It's still in their songbooks, called "Rock Me to Sleep." Um, so yeah, my dad actually had this similar desires, and then he, married Mom and had me eventually, and was just happy with that. Um, my mother used to always say that once they got together, and then it took me 13 years to be born, but once I was born 13 years later, my dad wanted for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. He was happy. So he went to work every morning very early. He was a custodian for the school department in Worcester, and tough job. Um, but I never went without anything. I was an only child, and was really well. I never went without a thing. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Shout out to all those blue collar parents out there, workers.
oh
It's
yeah,
they.
man, brother,
Yeah. It's amazing. I
working
know.
class hero.
What's that?
I said it's like the name of one of my favorite John Lennon songs, "The Working Class Hero."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
John
And
Lennon, fantastic musician. What a brilliant mind.
he was, and probably the one of the greatest influences in my life. Um, Having spent time around those people when I was very young,
Mm-hmm.
and who was like actually became like a secondary dad to me. So yeah, that in fact it was when he died that I quit playing music.
Oh really?
Yeah, and it was what 45 more years before I recorded again.
Really?
Um, and it was oddly enough, it was Ringo who talked me into it,
That's amazing.
who came back and said it's time for you to record again and make do what you used to love and when you were a kid and then helped me pull together some legendary people to play on my record. And so I went down to Nashville and I recorded two songs. The first two songs for what will eventually become an album called Walking with Legends
Okay.
because of the people who play on it. And and Down Home Georgia was our first release. That had Robbie Krieger from The Doors playing slide guitar.
Oh man.
Albert Lee, who's a guitar legend, playing lead guitar. And he's Clapton's favorite guitarist, and played for Eric for years.
That's
Um,
unbelievable.
Scarlett Rivera from Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder Revue playing fiddle. Um, Charlie McCoy, country legend that was in Elvis Presley's band, but also was 18 years the music director on Hee Haw.
Oh wow.
So he's like a country legend. Norbert Putnam, who was one of the original Muscle Shoals rhythm section guys, then became the bass player for Elvis Presley's TCB band. And then he went to Nashville and became about I'd say he was about the biggest producer of country acts in the world. And he was also responsible for bringing all the pop stars and rock stars and whatnot to Nashville to record.
Oh really?
Yeah. So, and then we had Spooner Oldham from the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, and he wrote great songs like "I'm Your Puppet." So just legendary guys. Ronnie Tutt was supposed to play drums for me, which was Elvis's drummer, but he had broken his hip when we were down there, and we went to visit him.
Mm-hmm.
Told me some great Elvis stories, and said he was going to record with me when I went back. Unfortunately, he passed away in the meanwhile. So,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
so that's not going to happen. Yeah, but he was a legendary drummer. Wonderful guy. Great stories that we heard from him. And just so nice to visit with him. Who else? Dan Dugmore, who they call the king of the California sound on pedal steel. He played 35 years for Linda Ronstadt, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Jackson Browne.
Oh wow.
And Spooner, by the way, also, aside from writing great songs and being one of the Muscle Shoals guys, played about 15 years with Neil Young. And who else? Let's see. Eddie Bears, who 16 years in a row won Best Drummer at the Country Music Awards. And they're all Country Music Hall of Fame people. And then we had the rest of them were all members of the Grand Ole Opry Band. So some great players. And going forward, Ringo's supposed to play with me. He did on one song, but it was only the demo. They got everything started. And Joe Walsh, people like that. Willie Nelson.
Just like
there's a whole bunch of people that have agreed to play it on the album when I eventually finish it.
I get a Joe Walsh thing for you. So the James Gang. I don't know if you knew this or not, but one of when
James Gang?
the James Gang, one of the members used to have a house out in Huntington, which is about 20 minutes north of where I am.
Really?
Yes, and they used to go up there and jam.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and my cousins lived up in Huntington and knew people up there. But I got to find out what I'll shoot you a text or call you within the next couple days, and I'll let you know. But on the back of the album, one of the James Gang's album covers, there was a picture outside of his camp up there in Huntington. So
Okay.
Just some random music knowledge. But I always, you hear that James Gang, and it's like, oh yeah, they had one of the guys had a house up there.
I
Um,
love that guy. He's such a funny guy too. He's Ringo's brother-in-law, you know.
Joe Walsh's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I
Yeah,
mean,
he married Margie, Barbara's sister. So they
and
go everywhere together.
that's awesome. I mean, he's a great musician. Just
I thought he's one of the best guitar players. Again, his favorite guitar player, like a lot of people, seems to be Albert Lee. Um, and he's just amazing, Albert. I mean, I'm so pleased to get to be friends with these people, let alone play music with them. You know,
well, it's Deck or Cornell and I have talked
you
about
can call
this.
them whatever you want.
Yeah,
I just wasn't used to it. That's all right.
no, that's okay. Cornell Dex, he's listening. Love that guy. We talked about that. Just like
Man, he's a great man.
he really is, and you want to talk about somebody that lifts other people up and
Oh
puts
yeah, he
he
does.
that man
Absolutely.
that man is we need more people like him. Um,
I'm with you on that one,
yeah,
brother.
he's good person, and him and I have had some you know in our short time that we've come together and started working with each other, and he's been awesome, like very humbling moments with that man, and I appreciate him and everything he does.
I
um
can understand that. He's one of the better guys in this crazy world we all live
yeah, it is a crazy world, and but
in.
the one
It
thing,
needs to be. It's starting to be.
yeah, it's just, as crazy as things are, um we still have music. And
The Lord.
I mean, I personally, when we went through COVID, it that killed me. Not being able to go see live shows, seeing
Tell
bands
me about
play.
it. I think my big mistake, one of the big mistakes I made is that I was invited to go and play all these drive-in shows that people were doing in the South, country people, and it was before I made the record. So I didn't really think anybody would want to listen, but apparently few people that did it ended up, pretty big country stars afterwards. So I think that was a mistake. Although, when we did put my record out, it eventually went to number one.
And
Um,
you were what, 6 weeks or 8 weeks on the charts at number one?
it was 3 cycles, which is so 3 weeks at number one in the magazines, the charted magazines, and national radio hits, New Music Weekly, the Independent Music Network also voted me like um, best new country artist of the year or something like that. But it was yeah, I was visiting my daughter and my grandsons, my two grandsons, in Hawaii. Um, I didn't realize that I had a daughter, and found out um, through a thing with 23andMe.
Oh wow.
My cousin called me up and asked about it, and said that her son had done a school project and had to use 23andMe and connected with this girl who was his second cousin, and I was the only first cousin they had.
Oh really?
So, um, yeah, I found out that I had a daughter who was a doctor in Hawaii.
Oh wow.
And I had to wait 2.5 years for COVID to wind down because Hawaii wasn't letting people in.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally got to go over there, and she was born in Massachusetts as well, and so were the boys. And I was there visiting them, and Ringo called me up to tell me when I hit number one. I had no idea. I didn't even believe him, to be honest. I thought he was pulling my face.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, so yeah, that was pretty cool. all the way around. Pretty special time, and um, that was one of the greatest gifts in my life because I had um, lost my mom and dad, some years before that,
Hmm.
and um, had no family here in the States at all, and then found out um, that I had my daughter Amy and two grandsons.
That's great.
Yeah, I feel a bit old because my grandson, the older of the two of them, just turned 18
Oh wow.
on
Okay.
July 1st, and I was like, "Ouch!"
Yeah.
I don't feel like I should be old enough to have a kid that old, but it's a grandchild. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Time stops for no one.
Oh, absolutely, and wonderful. I love those kids to death. They're just amazing.
That's great. And that's having a spot to go like Hawaii for a to visit family is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I had a nice time, but one of my daughter's friends asked me the night before I left what my favorite, what did I like about the island the most? They're on the Big Island, and I just said the family because, to be honest, I felt that the Big Island looked an awful lot like California with a lot of hardened black lava rock on it.
Oh really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess some of the other islands are more lush
Yeah.
and when we went to the other side of the island, that looked like it might be that way. Some bits of it. We went to see the volcano, and the day we went was the first time in I think they said 15 years or 20 years or something that it didn't even glow.
Oh really?
Yeah, so I was kind of disappointed in that, but and then I left and the thing blew up. It started erupting.
You made your mark.
I guess
Yeah.
something.
Well, so
Well, it didn't hurt them. I don't care.
no, that's great. So you found out you have a daughter. You have two grandkids out there.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
and yeah, that's nice. And apparently she can sing. I didn't get to hear her because she was really busy with all the medical stuff when I was there because of COVID and everything. So we didn't. I actually ended up spending more time with the kids, but we did spend some days together and showing me around the island and stuff. But I didn't get to hear her sing. She's be the only one of my kids that does what I do too. So,
Oh wow.
um, yeah,
Well,
um,
hopefully someday she can share that with you, and
yeah,
you can
I'm
enjoy that.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, it
I
gives.
know that the youngest son says that he can sing too. And I actually sang once with him. He's got a pretty nice voice. Joe Walsh actually made a joke where he told him that I was going to lose my voice soon, so he needs to take over. But he's like how much older than me, and he can still hit the same notes. So I guess I hope it was a joke.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've had points where my voice did die off, but it was reflux, and I've taken care of that. So.
Nice. Now, before you sing, do you have any like rituals or drinks or anything that you do?
Wow. Yeah. I have. First off, I went to see a doctor who put a strobe scope down my throat to see what was going on because I was having a hard time, and he found that it was reflux, and there's a Gaviscon product that you can't buy in a store or a drugstore in America, so I have to send to overseas for it.
Oh wow.
But you can buy it through like Amazon and stuff like that. It's called Gaviscon Plus.
Okay.
I think it's Plus, something like that. Gaviscon. No, I don't. Maybe it isn't plus. I forgot. Anyways, I drink a couple tablespoons of that every night before I go to bed, and I have to sleep on an angle with my head raised so that my throat doesn't get burned while I sleep by my stomach,
Mm-hmm.
which is the enemy of your voice. And then I've learned to do a lot of vocal exercises and physical things that exercises that move your vocal box about. Because apparently your vocal box can raise up, and if it's not down where it's supposed to be, it can create hoarseness.
Okay.
So I do some physical exercises and stretches and some vocal exercises with a straw, so that it creates like a backward pressure
Mm-hmm.
going. Yeah, and it helps. I can get my notes. So I mean, it's like I've yet to go out on tour since this record came out. So, but I practice singing a certain amount of songs every day just to see, that my voice holds up.
Yep.
And so far, so good.
Fantastic. So, in the near future, you're looking at possibly doing a little bit of a tour.
Well, I just the other day, I was like, I don't know where this came from really. Well, I found out afterwards, but I turned my TV on. You know how the things come on with the advertisements for the movies and streaming TV, and then the music stuff shows different pictures and links to what
Yep.
kind of music you want to listen to.
Yep.
And once the country music thing came on with my picture,
Really?
and it said Kevan Michaels, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and more. And I clicked on it, and there was some really big country acts, and then there was one with Elvis in my name. And somebody told me that they thought it was just algorithms from what I watch, but I don't watch myself. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
and while I love Willie, I don't really play him on my computer or my TV. So and at the same time, my son who lives in Switzerland wrote me that he had seen it and said, "I'm proud of you, Poppy." And it's so, and his giant son, who's the youngest one, also wrote something about me and my music, and having seen that. So whoever told me that was wrong. That was an actual thing that happened, and it was all shown all over the world. And then the following Monday morning, I get a call from a big management company that does personal management for artists, the recording artists, but also international tours.
Okay.
And they want to sign me, and that's kind of where things are headed. And then he had me. He sent my song "Down Home, Georgia," which I guess now it's time for a plug.
Great.
Let me finish the story.
Great song.
So he sent my song "Down Home, Georgia" over to a friend of his who's a executive vice president at Sony Music, and he really loved it and wanted the press kit. So who knows what's going to happen? I was trying to put everything out myself, and felt like a stranger in a strange land because things aren't the way they used to be at all
Mm-hmm.
in the gaming world, and so I really want a big label, and I think that I mean, I get a lot of notoriety as far as people knowing who I am and everything, but didn't make a lot of money because I didn't know what the hell I was doing anymore, and I think the record company would change that. And so who knows what's going to happen, but but that guy really loved the music and asked for a press kit. Um, which I spent the next 3 or 4 days and nights putting together. And I guess they were pretty impressed by what I put together. So we shall see. That would be nice. That would be a life-changing event.
Good. Well, you know what? I've said this before. I said sometimes the universe just things need to happen and certain things need to line up and everything's got to fall into order for things to happen. Everything happens for a reason.
Well, as it turned out, I've been talking uh, at least 3 nights a week to Chris Christopherson, who's not really doing all that well anymore. And he's kind of my writing hero, my songwriting hero.
He's an amazing songwriter.
No, he's brilliant. And, he's a Rhodes Scholar, went to Oxford. But he's not well. He's had physical problems for a while now. And actually, at one point, they thought he had Alzheimer's and found out that it was when you get bit by a deer tick, Lyme disease.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And so he's had his share of problems and retired. But we talk at least 3 nights a week and text to each other and when we talk for a long time, pretty late at night. He's in Hawaii. He lives on Maui.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out from Connie Nelson, who was Willie Nelson's ex, and I knew her because I was really close with their daughter, Paula, at one point. And apparently Chris called Willie and said that they should do something to help me with my career, and then that thing showed up. So I think all this stuff started happening. So I think it was probably Chris that initiated it, and God love him for that. I certainly do.
Well, and that's that people that have the ability to help other people and lift them up. Especially my heart goes out to artists, musicians, because you put yourself out there in a way. You're opening up. You're vulnerable. You don't know what the audience's the reaction is going to be to what you're doing, and
Right.
You're vulnerable, and
Really.
in the way the industry is now, I mean, I'm not in the music business, but I follow the music business and know people that are in it, and it is a absolute dog eat dog, cutthroat. And when when you have people that can help you, and that's the universe lining up. That's karma, whatever you want to call it. That's
But yeah, I mean, to me, to have help from people that I have gotten help from over the years. Phil Oakes, who was a major folk singer, the Beatles, and Chris and Willie. I mean, that's just insane. But it's wonderful that people like that care enough to help someone, coming up. I guess you have to be good at what you do, but
sure.
And I said I was going to plug this, so I will now. But to anybody listening, you want to either go to kevanmichaels.com, and it's spelled Kevan, not In, Michaels.com, and my song Down Home Georgia's on there on Bandcamp, and it's on. You can listen to it if you want on YouTube. And if you do, please subscribe and click like.
That's right. Give them some likes.
Yeah, and it's on Apple Music too, and I guess Spotify as well. Yeah, so the it's amazing the recognition I've gotten because of the radio play.
Mm-hmm.
But we still followed an old route. So, and radio play is not that important anymore. It's what your streams, and I have no idea how to deal with that still. So,
You,
um,
and that used to be the thing, Kevin, is, wait, anticipating an artist to release their work, going to a
yep,
music store, picking up a
oh, yeah,
physical copy of an album.
a record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like vinyl. I
I
have,
do too. I mean, you used to, not only is the sound better and more pure, but you would open that package up
yes,
and have the words on the liner,
yes,
and sometimes posters and pictures,
yes,
and that's all gone. It was gone when they switched to CDs and the like. I mean, I can remember the moment when I walked into the record store out here. It's called the Warehouse, and we were doing a show called Space Bridge '92. So it was in '92. It was a TV show with a bunch of stars in it, and it was the first multi-satellite cast show on an Academy Award night special. And I got permission from Yoko so we could sing Imagine. And it was when Russia tore down the wall, and we wrote a song, myself and this other guy, Mark Bolton, wrote a song called Let Freedom Ring.
mm-hmm.
And we sang that with all these celebrities, Richard Pryor, George Burns. It was like everybody in Hollywood that didn't go to the big show was at this show. And it was like I went into the warehouse to get the records for all the people to learn Imagine. And I walked in, and there's all these little discs in there, and I was like, "Where are the records?"
Mm-hmm.
The guy said, "What rock have you been under?"
Yeah,
I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "There hasn't been records for a couple of years." I was like, "Oh my god!" I had no idea, because after John died, I get so far out of music. I used to have the radios taken out of my car
really.
because it was that depressing for me.
And music should never be that for you.
No, it should not.
No.
But I mean, the band that I was in had two guys that killed themselves, and then this guy that I looked at like a second dad and certainly a mentor, was murdered, and it just took all the joy out of it for me. It was like I didn't even want that memory at all. But I'm thankful that Ringo talked me into it. The love for it all has come back full force. It was actually even before him. There was a kid that I was helping with a drug and alcohol problem, and that I mean, he was probably as close to being a son as you could be without sharing the same blood. And he was a very talented kid, and he really gave me some love for music again, in getting to sing and play guitar around the house, and and getting out and playing at people's parties and whatnot. And so I was kind of halfway home because of him. He unfortunately he met a bad end, and so it's like it's almost like he was an angel that was put in my life to get me back to do what
You were meant to do.
to play music again, and then he moved on and went back.
That's a beautiful way to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have to look at it that way, because it was a really painful event. It was not long after my mom died, so my mother really wanted me to get back to music, always, you know. And one of the last things she said to me was that that she wanted to see, if she could have one wish, it would be to see me have that musical notoriety again. And you know, she passed before any of that happened, but I believe she can see,
Oh, absolutely. I
and that knows that I did what I did since then, and I'm not done. I'm back. I may not be, you know, a great kid anymore, but I'm back, and I think some people think my voice is better now than it ever was. So you know, the song "Down Home Georgia" is a song I wrote when I was 14 years old, and the second song that we recorded um, was a song called "For You," which was my mom's favorite song, my favorite song. I wrote it with my cousin Paul, who was very well known in bands around the area in Massachusetts and New England back in the day. Um, he was initially in a band called Section 5. They became Hard Road, Cox Newton Taylor, and Pretty Poison, which was Pretty Poison was kind of a compilation band of like a super New England supergroup. It was
yep.
the guys, the Joneses, who became, you know, I forget what their big band that they became afterwards, but then, you know, a couple of them became part of Pretty Poison, and yeah. So I mean, we basically in my you know, the musicians in my family, which are just my cousin Paul and myself, grew up in the music world in Massachusetts and New England, and it was a great place to grow up, and to there was a lot of great musicians and a lot of talented people there.
It's funny you say that because like I try to go to local shows all the time, support
Yeah,
local musicians,
good man.
and you know, Massachusetts and Western Mass, we've got some of the like. There's a lot of I'm there's a lot of heavy metal bands here, and you know, both
Is
guitar
there
play.
now? There is.
What's that?
I said now there's a lot of heavy metal bands there.
Oh yeah, Western Mass. It kind of was the birthplace for this. Not it really took off. Called metalcore. Where
Okay.
so bands like Kill Switch Engage, which are from Westfield, Mass.
Okay.
You know, one of the guitar players lives in my hometown. Two of the guitar players for this band, Shadows Fall, they're Westfield based. One of them actually plays with Anthrax.
Okay.
So there's a lot of there's a lot. I don't know if it's just the energy that's here in this state, or you know, the people that put that energy off, where it just attracts other people that are, you know,
I
artists.
don't think it's the whole state. That's the interesting part. It seems to be pockets. The Berkshires certainly is magical, and I think it's like out here there are areas like, you know, that I think are magical where, and the creative people tend to live in those areas. Worcester somehow, oddly enough, you know, is a mill town, but and a college town, but it produced a lot of really good musicians. So that's it's one pocket for sure. But it's funny because when I think of Western Massachusetts, I think of James Taylor and Tanglewood,
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people
Arlo
do,
Guthrie and people like that.
and it's there. You know what? It's so James Taylor. He'll there's like little hole in the wall mom and pop pubs up there that he'll just
Yeah.
walk into for open mic night, and he'll play for a couple hours. There could be like two
Oh
people in there or 10 people in there. Um,
yeah,
you know, in the town I'm in, there's a place called I'm going to give a shout out, Luthier's Co-op. Um, a friend of mine's
yeah.
two brothers own it. It's a guitar shop, and they have live music there. You can go in Wednesday nights, plug in. You can do spoken word. You can play whatever. My son's my middle son, his one of his best friend, started playing guitar a couple of years ago, and he's an absolute phenom. In the sense where he listens to a song and then he can play it, and he's had no structured
Amazing.
lessons. He's had nothing. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, it just
Prodigies, like to me, those are prodigies, and it seems more common now than it ever was. And I question always: um, is it only because we know about it now because of the internet? All these prodigies that come out of places that uh, you know that we wouldn't think to look, or if they've always been there and until the internet, we didn't know about them. That's what I question that. I
I,
have that question all the time.
that's a great question, and personally, I think these people have always been there. Um, and
That probably is the likely answer.
and it's funny because you can I have this I connect with people. It's just a gift I have. I walk into a room and I can just connect with people and start talking, and I can talk for hours on hours and hours.
Yeah, I get it. I'm like that too.
But that's people like that are positive and that throw off that energy. They attract that type of person to them. I believe they do.
Yeah,
That's
that's true.
you know again, we're having this conversation through Cornell. um, Again, him and I connected, and in more ways than one, we've had this conversation that we just it's not just coincidence that things happen, and you talk to people, and I believe there's some type of a plan. Maybe it's
Yeah, I always questioned if, like, if reincarnation was a thing at one point. I remember thinking about that we just always like get back to the same people
yeah
in
I
every way.
yeah
Yeah,
that
and
energy.
that's why we're attracted to these people, or we find each other no matter where we are, because it does seem to be that way.
It does, and like the negative people, I want nothing to do with negativity, and
Yeah, well, that's hard to bear. I yeah,
it's
I,
it,
I sometimes call them energy vampires
oh
because
my god,
I
yeah.
it's a good analogy, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
that's perfect.
yeah, because I there's even some people I like that are like that. I like them, but I try not to spend quite as much time around them. There's like one guy in particular that I know that a lot of my friends hang out with him all the time, and he just goes on, and it's all this negative stuff, and I feel like 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 the air is being sucked out of my lungs, and I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah, it drags you down.
Oh my god, it's like you literally can get physically ill.
Yep. Yep. No, I know. Yeah, because now it. I don't know if it pulls away the positive. That whatever
I
you're.
don't know.
It's funny you say that because I know exactly how you feel, and I've gotten to the point where and I was just telling these guys at work today. We were I had told them oh yeah, I'm doing a podcast tonight, and they're like, oh really? I said yeah. Check it out.
I hope they didn't come for the first part.
Yeah, well, what if they did? There's we have a bunch of people. I'm looking on the computer right now, engaging. They're loving it. Um, got a nice response here. You know,
Cool. Thank you to whoever did is responding in that way.
yeah, no,
Appreciate
there's a bunch of good people. Just and that's again the whole point of me starting this was to connect with people that were positive, people that had positive influences in their lives, and trying to make a difference or made some type of a difference.
Well, we need that now, brother. I'll tell you that.
Oh my
Because
god.
I don't remember any period in my life, certainly, where we were this divided. And even historically, being kind of a history buff, I can't think of a time when we were, not just America, but the world. It's just so
it
divided.
it is, and it's
It's heartbreaking, really.
And I tell my kids this, I tell friends this. I said, you want to start making a change? Hold the door for somebody in the morning.
It's
Say,
true, and this is something that I'm very, I do these, as I said, I it's just part of what I do is like help a lot of young people with drug and alcohol problems,
and you're
and it
you're
just helps me as well. I mean, it's such a positive thing to do, and if you save one life or whatever, it's like just an amazing. I mean, what can you ask for? You know, it's like just one person. It's amazing,
do it.
and it's heartbreaking when they don't make it. But I don't know. That's. I think that I myself had that like a problem with alcohol when I was a kid
Mhm.
and growing up, and I just feel like like I have to give back, um, and it's yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful feeling if you. I find giving to be a lot better than receiving in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely.
So positive vibes are a good thing. I know that the one when before my mom left for like 4 or 5 years before she left, she had dementia, and I had the option of leaving her at a nursing facility
Hmm.
or taking her home. But if I took her home, it's 24/7,
Hmm.
and I basically have to give up everything for that, and that's what I opted to do, and it was very difficult, but also very beautiful, and I think the best thing I've ever done in my life. And when she left on "I love you" and a kiss, and she told me, "I love my life with you. I've enjoyed every second of my life because of you." And it's like you couldn't ask for more than that. At the end of the day,
No, that's yeah, that's a little emotional right now with that.
yeah, it
It,
gets me every time. And I mean, um, as having dementia, sometimes she couldn't talk for months and everything, but she managed to speak in the end, and she woke up out of a coma, 3 days in a coma, and woke up to kiss me goodbye, and and to smile at me. Um,
that's a beautiful ending.
it really is, and I'm blessed that both my parents, when they left, it was on "I love you" and a kiss, and my dad too. He passed in his sleep, like you know, maybe an hour after we had this really beautiful conversation, and I was making a movie, which is something that I had a movie I had wanted to make for a real long time, and I remember saying to him, "I'm going to make you proud, Dad." And he said, "I've been proud of you since the first moment I set eyes on you, and I love you so much." And then I went and got some warm milk so I could go back to sleep.
Hmm.
And he was snoring; he was sound asleep. I went upstairs, and a couple hours later, my mom was at the foot of my bed saying, "There's something wrong with your dad," and he had passed in his sleep. So I mean, unfortunately, dying is a part of living,
Hmm.
but you can't ask for more than those endings. You know, um, to have the two people that raised you or that you love so much to leave you with "I love you" and a kiss is just you can't ask for more than that.
No, that's it's. it's the perfect ending to a long, beautiful life.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm very blessed that my mom, well, my dad only made it to 83, which is what Ringo is now. So I'm knocking on wood, uh, but he's doing amazing though. He looks like a kid.
Well,
But
it's
my
that.
mother was almost 96 when she passed,
Oh
so
wow.
and her family lives long. Um, Two of her cousins made it. They didn't have Alzheimer's or dementia, so they made it longer than she did. But one of them just died at 109.
Oh wow,
And
that's awesome.
she read historical novels to blind kids and swam every day
Oh my
up
god.
until 3 days before she died.
And where was she from? Where was she from?
Framingham,
Oh really?
Framingham, Massachusetts.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. That side of my family, they had a lot of businesses around Worcester and around New England. Um, they were in the lumberyard business and construction and all that
Yep.
stuff. It was my mom was Italian and Apache Indian. The Italian side were, all into all that stuff. And my dad was like 100% Irish. So,
Okay, so you have a good mix.
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting mix. I mean, you hear of a lot of Irish Italians in that part of the world,
Hmm.
and all the way down to New York and New Jersey, but actually into Pennsylvania as well. But I think the Apache Indian is kind of a odd mix, with that combination.
Well,
Um,
and
I
I'm,
like it though.
and that's, you know, Native Americans are connected with spiritually a lot of things.
Oh my God, yes.
And I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, there definitely is.
You know, but yet my father's grandfather on his father or mother's side he was off the boat from Italy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was came
That's
here
cool.
and he was a mason. He in
Oh
Northampton.
my.
Yep, he built a water fountain that still stands in the by the courthouse in Northampton.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool.
Yeah, and he did a lot of
I like
stucco houses. And
Northampton's a beautiful area.
it is, and it used to be a hub for music. Um, there was the Iron Horse, there was Pearl Street, Calvin. There was there's another theater there too. But that was where I would go as a kid. You want to see live shows, you got to go to Northampton because there's nothing. My
Oh,
town.
yeah, that makes sense. I guess.
Yeah, my town was a mill town and a farmer. I grew up on a farm. My
Yeah, you
family.
said that when we talked the other day. That's great, man. That's interesting. My family also came from a farm, but it was actually kind of in the middle of Worcester, which is weird. But it was a pretty big farm at one point.
What did they have for? Were they animals or
They
vegetables?
had different animals. They had cows and goats and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I only remember vaguely. It was kind of starting to. It was it was called the Frangilla Estate, and it was like if basically most of it's been sold off now, and they've built new houses and stuff there. The last time I was back there, I'd say for the last maybe 15 or 20 years, maybe even longer. The actual big acreage has been sold off to that, and they still kept a certain amount more
Mm-hmm.
land than most places in Worcester had. But now all the streets are named after the family members,
Okay.
so it's kind of cool too.
That's very similar story to our farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandfather's one of his both of his younger brothers were carpenters, and they built a lot of homes in this town. And then when my grandfather and his brothers sold the farm, one of the brothers bought it and then put homes up on it. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That seems to be what happens to a lot of the, you know, to a lot of the farms. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen to all of them because we certainly need them,
it, it,
farmers.
yeah, we do. The small town farmer. It's so hard to compete with, especially we were for the area, we were a very large farm. We would go through 3,000 pigs in a year.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
huge.
for Massachusetts, it was it was a very big farm. We had like 150 head of beef cattle.
Wow.
We had turkeys, and then as a kid, I had chickens, and I ended up I forget what grade it was. We hatched chickens at school, and one family took them home, then decided they didn't want 25 chickens, so
Oh my God.
they ended up at my house in my chicken coop. So
Wow.
that was
That's wow.
but yeah, growing up in that farming community, there's a lot of people, and I've said this before to other people, and they're willing to give even when they don't have anything to give.
Yeah, this is true.
They helping each other
They're
out.
like salt of the earth people,
They sure are.
and it's just. I mean, we need not just the farmers, but those kind of people. You know,
Yeah,
I
that's exactly those types of people. You don't have that, and I feel that these younger generations, especially now, they're so disconnected with that. Um,
yeah, yeah, that's sad. Yeah, I mean, even like to be honest, like when I was visiting I was talking about visiting the grandkids and stuff. They hardly ever go out. They play video games and in each one of their rooms, and it's now they got, thank God, now they get jobs and stuff, and they're out with they're out doing that at least, but they didn't go out a lot. Like, I mean, when we were kids, we were always out. It was like you
yeah,
go out and play when you're really young, and then they have bicycle rides in the country and all,
yeah,
whatever. We used to go hiking up in the mountains in New Hampshire, and in the Berkshires and all that, and you just don't see a lot of that anymore. It's really kind of sad.
yeah. There's a major, yeah. I mean, even we're connected through a phone, which is essentially a computer in our hand,
Yeah,
and
yeah. These are yeah.
I mean they're great, and now it's become a tool for me, because you have your notes in there, you have your date, you can do all this stuff, and it's like, man, what happened to like writing stuff down?
True, true.
All it just you know nobody writes letters to anybody anymore.
No, they don't, and it's like texting is like another thing that I find it weird because I mean I do it sometimes, but only short bursts. I just when people write big long texts and stuff, I
Hmm.
don't call me.
Yeah, let's have a conversation, because yeah, you and tone, you can't get tone in a text. you know it,
And sometimes you write a written word doesn't. You're not hearing the expression from the person, so you're not getting the sentiment the way. And
yes,
sometimes it can cause problems.
absolutely. Like,
Because they think
yes.
you said something one way, and you meant it a totally different way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's like, yeah, just yeah, you know what? Sometimes a phone call is necessary.
Yeah.
You
I,
know,
I I think it's a lot more personal. That's for sure.
it
And
sure is.
um, I know it's one of the things I love about Cornell too. Cornell, he calls. I mean, I'm kind of like John was back in the day. I don't know, like I'm not really good at long, super long conversations on the phone and stuff like that. A lot of times, like if I'm doing something, I won't even answer. But I'd still rather talk than text.
Yep.
And Cornell will call and every once in a while and just check up how I'm doing. And you know, it's great to know that there's people out there who care what's about you. You know, just and yeah. So it's just otherwise. You know, I mean, I feel bad when I see my grandkids basically staying in the house all the time, and you know, and even when they're out, they're looking at that little screen
Yeah.
the whole time. And you know, playing games on it, or you know, you're driving and you're seeing all this beautiful stuff around you,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking at a little screen, a little tiny screen that you know is going to bother your eyes, even let alone you know, and the world is going by. It's just kind of sad.
It sure
Um,
is.
it's I fear that technology, while it has its uses, I'm not quite sure that it's necessarily 100% a good thing. I don't think it is actually.
No, I agree with you. And like
I
now
mean, this
with
is cool, like you said, that we can do this, but
yeah, I mean, there's definitely advantages, but then you get into artificial intelligence and like, there's some artists that are using that to create music now.
I know.
Like, and
Well,
it's
The Beatles just did a their last record together, and you know, Chris Ringo was like, "Don't worry, we'll never use AI on John Lennon's voice," and then you know he said no to it at first. He got really talked into it by Paul and by you know, Giles Martin and stuff. Because it was the last. They come on, you know, it's like you were the drummer for the Beatles, and this is the last Beatle record you'll ever play on, you know, that you'll ever be able to play on. But he especially didn't want to do it when he found out that while they didn't put AI on John's voice, they put AI on Paul's to make him sound younger.
oh really?
Yeah, and it's kind of, you know, I know that right now they're having a strike here, and two strikes here in Hollywood. One is the writers, and now the actors have joined it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all about a lot of it's the fear of AI and you know, and stuff like that, um, and streaming and not getting paid for it.
And you hit the nail on the head. The streaming. I hate it. I
Yeah,
absolutely hate it. But
yeah, I
that's
do.
the age we live in, and it's
I do too.
the other thing that kills me is the ticket prices to go see some of these shows
Oh my God.
where the artists aren't set in. And people get pissed off at the artist. It's like,
The
listen,
record company don't pay them anymore. That's why.
and then the venues are taking their merch cuts. Like,
Yes, they do. They
and,
do.
and I and
Which is
I
fine if they put money into it.
but that's exactly, but they don't. Like, you show up to play a venue and it's like, yeah, we're going to take 30% of your merchandise. Like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
These smaller bands, like, a lot of them just can't tour now because they can't
I know.
afford to do that.
The
you know
guys, I have some guys that are that you know I've been talking to about. They're a three-piece band, and I need more than that. But at least I wanted to use them as a core band to start with. Um, they're young guys in their 20s. They're brilliant. Um, you know, they just came off a tour with the Jonas Brothers or something, and they're you know, do a couple on their own because they've got their own following of millions of people. But we're talking about doing something like what the band did with Dylan, where they can still play their own thing
hmm
and do what they want to do with their own music, but they can play with me. And do, you know, background vocals and all that stuff. You know, playing. They're great musicians. Their voices are brilliant. They did a TikTok. thing on the song "Time of the Seasons."
Okay.
I showed it to Ringo, and he thought that they were mouthing to the record.
Oh,
That's how
really?
good it was.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know what? Touring with, having backup musicians or, fellow musicians that you're playing with like that, they're going to
Yeah,
bring another element of an audience that may not have ever saw you or heard you,
yeah, that's just true.
exposing
Well,
you
that's
to
the other thing.
younger.
I think that it's not a great idea for me to go out and play with a bunch of, with everybody my own age. Because it limits who wants to come see you.
Sure.
Even if they like the music, they might not want to sit and but bunch of young girls or something aren't going to want to go and watch a bunch of old guys playing music.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're Paul McCartney, maybe they will, but but who knows? I mean, even I've heard things that I never thought I'd hear even about them. You know, I remember when, and this goes back. I remember when my son was Pele was I think he was 14 or 15, about 15 maybe, and one of his friends said to me, "Oh, I heard you know Paul McCartney," and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Is it true he was in another band before Wings?" And I was like, "Pele, get that guy out of my house."
Yeah, like probably one of the most influential music they created. You had guys like Johnny Cash,
Yeah,
Chuck
Elvis.
Berry, Elvis, that really got rock and roll
Yeah,
started, and then you had the Beatles come along and
right.
redefine. I mean, they create they. You're never going to have another Beatles.
No, I don't think so. No.
You
I
know,
mean, it's one of the things that, Ringo, I call him Richie all the time because he doesn't like to be called Ringo by people that are like family members or friends. So just call him Richie. But he and I have talked about this a lot. Like when Paul McCartney's last tour came out, and I was over his house and we watched the stream of the first show.
mm-hmm.
And, he's having a hard time singing. And it's the first show. It's like, you know, God bless him for doing what he's doing. And a lot of people are still thrilled about it. But, I get to go for free. The seats I had when he played at Dodger Stadium, not this last time, but the time before that when he still had more of a voice, um, I think that they were like $3,500 a piece or more.
Oh my God.
But I got them for free, and it was like third row dead center.
Mm-hmm.
We were so close that I couldn't even get a video of them on my camera on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and get the whole body in it. I had to move back to get pictures like that. But you know what? I mean, I personally don't want, when that starts happening to me. I don't want to do it anymore, and I'm not in the same position as them, but their legend is so much
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think it's a great idea to carry on after a point.
You're it you because you could tarnish what you work so hard to create.
I think so.
Yeah.
I really think so. And because when I started seeing people writing what I was thinking, but worse, I mean, even let's jump to Bon Jovi. You know, um, when he was singing in Houston and he couldn't sing anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and and then the one song that he sang, which is one of the harder songs, "Living on a Prayer," um, was perfect. And then it got discovered that it was the tape or the record,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just mouthing it. Um, and there was all these streams, Houston, we got a problem and stuff like that, like, using the astronaut quote from back in the day. I just wouldn't want that. I'd rather be Greta Garbo as a guy and be gone, and just say, I hide my face. I don't want to see anybody, whatever. I just want to live my life. Maybe, buy a ranch somewhere in Europe and live, you know, the way my relatives before me lived, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just in peace and quiet, and just be remembered for what you did. That was, you know, that was good and wonderful, and I just don't. I don't want whatever my art is to ever become a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And if it ever, to me, if it ever, I don't know, if I felt that wasn't good anymore, I wouldn't do it. You know, I just wouldn't do it. I I don't want to charge people for, you know, just what my name is or what I did before if I can't live up to it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, you know, to be an artist in the true sense of the word, I guarantee you that if John was still alive, he would not be playing.
Just be in the background, just living his life, enjoying himself.
Yeah. I mean, he did it already, right? He did it for how many years before he made that last record, last two records, and then get killed, just so he could help raise his kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you know, he wouldn't be out there um, playing music if he wasn't good anymore.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean, he had such a high standard.
You know what I think it is too, Kevin. I think that when when you've become such an icon, and it's I'm sure it's addictive to to
It
to,
was addictive.
to do those shows, and and you want people to continue and not forget you, and you want to be you want to be relevant in the moment, and I understand that, because it's like in any aspect, whether it's work or being able to ride a bicycle or swim. There comes a point in your life where you just have to stop because you can't physically do it. There's just
Yeah.
it just happens. But no,
Yeah.
I know it's hard to see musicians that you put on. You do put people up on a pedestal because
Oh,
you connect to them, you appreciate what they're doing, the message, whatever it may be. And when you see them falling off of that pedestal, it hurts.
this is true.
You
And
know,
you know, one of the things I'm pleased to say about Ringo is that he seems to have gotten better with age.
because you know what I find with drummers, they're always, they have the best seat in the show because they're at the
Yeah,
back and they get to see
this
the
is
whole
true.
thing. They get to see the whole thing. But I think because they're always pushed to the back, I feel like there's, you have your exceptions like, Phil Collins,
Yeah.
who is, not doing anything anymore because of his health, and God bless him.
Well, yeah, this is true.
But I think, mentally, I think it weighs on them because they're tucked to the back. You don't really get to see them that much. You can see them, but you don't see them. They're not the singer. They're not the lead guitar player or the bass player or the rhythm guitar player that's up on the stage, that's right there in the spotlight. They're kind of in the back, and I feel like that sometimes maybe they don't want to come out of their shell, or maybe they just don't feel like they can. I don't know.
Yeah, but oddly enough, with Rich, when the Beatles were a thing, he actually got more fan mail than anybody else. Um, he was one of the more popular of the lot, and yet he's doing what he's doing now. But he's just, I mean, you know, some of the guys that go with him, I could do without listening to them at this age. But he's actually gotten better. I think when you listen, he put a record out. I want to say a year ago at New Year's or something like that. It was during COVID, and it was just really enjoyable to hear and hear his voice in better form than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And he just sounded good. He looked good, and it was like, one of those things that during a downtime, COVID, it like made you feel happy again.
Yeah,
It's and that's the whole purpose of music, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we all have like memories related to the music, to a song.
absolutely.
It's like, where were we when we heard it for the first time, or who we were with, or and that all is a part of it when you're listening to the song. And that's really cool.
It's
It's really cool when you write one and people tell you that stuff.
yeah, it's because it's a song is it's part of your journey.
It is.
You and you connect to it, and you care. Like there's songs, I just turned 44, so I'm still relatively young.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, but again, there's like when I was grown, my mother, and I mentioned this on other podcasts. She really, her and my dad's brother Scott, who passed away a couple of years ago. Um,
Yeah.
he they opened me up to like real like music. There was the stuff that was getting played on the radio, but we'd be at home or we'd be in the car. My mom was a cook at the school I went to, so we got to ride into school into work with mom. Um,
Yeah.
but she always had Queen on. Um, you know, every
Pretty
time.
great band.
What's that?
Pretty great band.
Oh my God! Like that. Like Freddie Mercury to me is probably one of the greatest frontman.
Amazing singer.
Oh my God,
Amazing singer. But the guitarist, um,
Brian.
Brian May, is one of the better guitar players there's ever been.
He
And
is,
hardly nobody talks about that. But
and when he strikes a chord, you know who's playing that chord. His sound
absolutely
is so unique, and even Roger Taylor, the drummer, like when
great.
he's playing, that's him. There's a
Absolutely.
there's that distinctive sound that they brought together. I don't think, if they didn't find each other, I don't think you'd ever hear that, because what they did was so unique. Bands
That's true.
like them, going back to the Beatles, there was nobody else doing that. And then of course you have the Rolling Stones that come along, and then you have bands like Led Zeppelin, which was another huge influence in musically for me, because my parents loved Led Zeppelin, so they were always playing Led Zeppelin. The Beatles. My mother was always playing Beatles records. She's still in her rotate. So every time somebody in the family has a birthday, we have this group text. There's I think 10 people in it. I think, and
Wow.
and she plays the birthday song. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
That
yes.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
Every birthday, if you wake up in the morning, you open up your phone. If it's your birthday, my mother sends you that, and then she cranks it on her stereo in her kitchen. When we show up to go down there for dinner or whatever and meet up, and that'll be cranking when it's your birthday. So it's just
That's
again,
cool.
you talk about songs that connect you to something, experiences like that will forever be in my mind
Yeah.
when I hear
That's
that song.
exactly that's what I'm saying. A song is more than just the notes that. There's only what, three notes. They always say there's like three notes connected or something like that. I forget what the Willie Nelson says it all the time. And yet, think of all the great memories that have been created by those notes.
I know, and it's just like one of like a song that really touches my soul was a song Chris Christopherson wrote, and Johnny Cash made it famous.
Sunday morning.
Sunday Morning.
Yeah, Sunday morning coming down, one of the best.
That
I
song,
mean, there's very few of us that haven't felt that.
and it's just, and I've watched old interviews on Chris talking about that song, when he wrote it, and then when Johnny said, "Hey, I'm gonna play that song," and he got a bunch of shit because he swore, um,
Yeah.
and was, it just, but you hear them, and it's the delivery of how they present it to you,
Oh, absolutely.
and
I mean,
that
the funny part was that Johnny really, because they told Chris they were not going to allow them to say the word. It was the Johnny Cash show, and they were not going to allow him to say the words "wishing Lord that I was stoned,"
that's
and they
right.
wanted him to pick some different words to say.
Yep.
And and John, like Johnny, just kind of winked at him or something. And when they said it, he like doubled down on it.
Mm-hmm.
He like stoned when he said
Yep.
it. It was like that was great. I mean, Chris. To me, there's no other. I mean, a lot of people like Dylan more. Chris is my guy. I lived across a canyon from Bob, and it was only when I say it was a canyon, it was more like a dip in the woods.
Yep.
Literally, you could see his house. It would be like a house 3 houses away, but with a little dip in between. So that's what I would call a canyon.
Okay.
It wasn't a very big one. And I just can remember when he was rehearsing to go for a tour. This is like, it's got to be 28 years ago or something like that, 28, 30 years ago. And for the first day or two, it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to go over and kill him.
I love you and you're a music icon, but please stop.
Yeah, I mean, it was like for days and days and weeks. And it was just,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, no. And, I know Chris mocks his own singing.
He's got a beautiful
But out
voice.
of, out of the guys that to me are non-singers, but he's the best. Um, I always think of Chris Christopherson, Neil Young,
Oh my God, I love Neil
and,
Young.
he's a great writer,
Yeah.
and Bob Dylan. But I think Chris's voice is just real. It's so real that it's like,
Yes.
and he told me a story that when he went to Monument Records, the head of Monument Records, he just wanted to sell the songs, and the guy told him, I'll make you a deal. I'll take your publishing. I'll publish your songs, but you have to sing them. And he said, I can't sing. I sound like a croaking frog. And he said, you sound real. And Chris said, yeah, real shit.
Yeah.
But you know what? I disagree. I like something about, especially younger Christopherson. When you listen to his voice when he was younger, I just feel it's like just real. It's like,
You can relate to
um,
it.
I don't know, like, Bob Dylan has that almost like French Canadian sound or something that it's not for you,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and Neil Young, you, like, you can almost tell when his voice breaks. But Chris just sounds real. I mean, in a way, I mean, I think of him especially being like Johnny. Johnny talked most of his songs,
Yeah.
Johnny Cash. But he was freaking great.
Yeah. And how they deliver
Oh, the
the
delivery, man.
song,
I
like,
mean,
oh my God.
it's
Yeah.
off the chart. When I was tight with Paula Nelson, and the Universal Amphitheater was still here. It's now a Harry Potter ride.
Oh.
Um, but it was one of the best places you could hear a concert. It was like Carnegie Hall. It had beautiful, perfect sound. And Paula Nelson invited me to come down to the Highwaymen.
Oh my God.
And we got, backstage, and she took me on all the buses and introduced me to all the guys. And I just, it was like a dream. I mean, it was like, you know, this Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson in one band.
Mm-hmm.
They're effectively the only country supergroup there's ever been.
Yeah, and there never will be another
No.
that yeah, yeah, and I don't know if I don't think my father-in-law is listening, but my father-in-law is one of the biggest Willie Nelson fans. He
Yeah, Willie is brilliant. I do an impression of Willie at times because we were supposed to do a movie together, and with him and his daughter and me and my son, and I wrote the song for it. And when I played it for him, I tell this story when I play it every time, and it's kind of a long story, but it's like I drove down to San Diego where Paula was living with her mother and her sister Amy, and Willie was staying with them, and she wanted me to meet him, so I drove down. It's like 2.5 hours, something like that, to get there.
okay.
And he was talking about the movie we were going to do. He said, "Well, we need a song for it," and I said, "Well, you're the man, you know. I'm sure you come up with something brilliant." And he says, "Well, I'm just involved with the Highlandmen now. I'm not going to be able to do that." So I was like, "Well, maybe I can come up with something." And he just like he, I almost felt like he would laugh, but he didn't. He just kind of looked at me, you know, and so we had dinner and everything, and I left, and I started driving back up to LA. And by the time I got home, I had written a song called Desolation that was supposed to be me singing my character's part and him singing his character's part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the part that came from their life in the movie. And I was so excited about it, I drove straight back down there again. And they were like, "What are you doing here again?" And I was like, "I wrote the song. I want you to hear it." And I played it for him, and then he sang it with me.
Oh my God.
We didn't record it, and that will forever be, you know, hopefully um, I get to finish the album before anything happens to Willie, who's 90 now, and we get to record the song together. But so I do the song live, and I do my part, but then I impersonate Willie's part,
Mm-hmm.
and it usually gets like first a laugh, but then I think people just accept it. Waylon used to do that with Willie. Waylon Jennings used to like sing songs that he sang with Willie and put Willie's voice into. Willie's great.
Another just brilliant.
Father-in-law is right on.
You're fortunate to have your life intertwined with all those. I mean, they're beautiful musicians. They're artists. They're
Really
artists.
are. I mean, and you know, I mean, we didn't even touch on this, but I mean, I actually got to meet Elvis at one point. I never. My greatest regret, because you know, I grew up under an oil painting over my cradle,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother wanted to see him so bad, and I went down because Bjorn Borg, the tennis player, who was a friend of mine when we were kids, and I lived in Sweden for a while.
Oh wow!
And he gave Elvis. He was our hero, and he met him, and he gave him a copy of one of my first records. And Elvis said he was going to put it in his jukebox, but he always like wanted to meet the person and have them watch him put it in his jukebox. So flew me down there. I went and I met him, and I watched him put the record in the jukebox, and we talked till about 4:00 in the morning. We sat up talking about our moms. But I never got to hear him play, and he gave me backstage laminates for when he was coming to Rhode Island, so that I could bring my mom and she would see him, and he died before he got there. So we never saw him play.
What a tragedy.
But my friend Steven is an Elvis impersonator. That's in Vegas. That's the closest we get. But that time that I spent with him that one night will forever live in my mind. You know, and then to have years later made a record with a bunch of his guys playing on it.
Yeah,
I never saw that coming.
And that, you know what? That's the universe. That may, you know what? You connected with him, and this may be him on the other side, maybe giving you a push that way, or giving them a push towards you.
It's possible. Who's to say what goes on? I definitely believe there's something going on the other side. I
Ab-
don't think it just ends here.
no, no, because there's more. There has to be more than just this. I mean, because you think really. I mean, what's our? We're lucky if we live till we're 80, 85,
Yeah,
90. You know,
absolutely,
it's a blink. It's our existence as an individual is a blink of an eye. Um,
absolutely.
so, yeah, I think. I mean, I've had this conversation with other guests on the podcast about seeing spirits and hearing and talking. I talked to one of my best friends was killed in a tragic motorcycle accident in 2018, and that was a very had a very hard. That was a hard thing for me to deal with, and
I understand that.
yeah, you just there's because when somebody you're so close to, and you connect with them, whether it's family or friend, um, when they pass, there's a part of you that you can kind of feel like a little bit of you
It
goes with
goes with
them.
you.
It does.
Yeah,
Not that that's a bad thing, because maybe that they're able to take that little bit of you with them and hold on to that, and maybe that's why you're still,
I
you know,
hope that's true. I do. I really hope that's true. I thought the same thing, and I hope it's true.
and that's how I try to look at things. Like, okay, they
It's a
took
good way
that,
to look at
and then you're still connected with them, because I even find myself at times like I'll ask them like, what the hell would you do right now? Like, talk to me, Al.
it.
Just
Yeah,
certain things, or I'll, my grandfather's, one of my grandfathers died in 97, and I think about him all the time. And it's just like random things. Like when we go up to, next month, we go up to on family vacation, and we go to this beach above Hampton Beach. It's called Rye Beach. Um,
oh yeah, I know that.
yeah, great. We love it up there. It's quiet. But when as kids, my grandparents used to take us up. We used to go to Rye Beach all the time. So whenever I'm there, it's like I'm connected with him again. I'm connected with. It's just certain. There's just certain things like that just.
No, that's special. I mean, I get it. When one of the greatest moments for me, well, at the time it didn't seem great, but I was in the hospital. I had some stomach issues, and I was 19 years old, and they gave me a shot, a painkiller called Talwin, and it stopped my heart. And I um, I remember my mom, my friend Bobby, and my cousin Missy were in the room, and I felt like I was up at the ceiling looking down, and heard everything they said, and I repeated it when I got back, um, and it was verbatim, so it was real. So I had this whole out of body experience.
Mm-hmm.
Then went through a kind of a dark place where there's like almost half humanoid, half like creatures. I don't like monsters. I don't know. It was horrible, but I was above it, so it was they couldn't get near me, but it was still frightening. And then I was in a light, and it was warm and comforting, and I didn't care anymore. And I saw people in the light that I knew who had passed, and the only thing that made me think that it maybe wasn't real um, was that I saw my friend Johnny, and I knew he was still alive. And I got to what I assume is the edge of heaven or something, and I didn't hear a voice telling me to go back, but I felt it. And then I was back in the room, and they had used the paddles on me and brought me back.
Oh my God.
And they were checking my pulse every like minute. And about I was talking to my mom about it about a week and a half after I got home, and I said the one thing that makes me think though it wasn't real is because I mean Johnny's not dead. And I saw him there, and she said I didn't want to tell you at the time, but he got hit by a car on Sturrow Drive in Boston the night before that happened to you, and he didn't survive.
Oh my God.
I did not know that, but I saw him in that light.
Yeah.
So there's something beyond this,
Yeah.
that for sure.
Well,
And that's one of those things that if I had any doubts in my faith, ever after not, I believed 100% in God and heaven and all that after that, because how could you not?
yeah, and like I have I grew up in a Catholic
Me too.
kindergarten to eighth grade Catholic school. It
Catechism.
yeah, I had it was hard for me, after I got out of Catholic school, I went into high school, and I went to a vocational trade school, and it was like a light switch got flipped when I got out of Catholic school. I'm like, oh my God, people actually talk to their teachers like this, and it was a culture shock for me.
Wow.
Because I wasn't used to kids swearing
Yeah.
in class, and just I had nuns. I got hit with a ruler.
Oh, yeah. The
Yeah,
nuns. I remember them.
yeah, yeah. I don't miss them. I do not miss them. It
Some of them were all right. We had one that was pretty cool. The rest of them were, they used to have these little things that look like a frog that clicked that you could buy at the store, like at the corner store.
Yep.
It made a clicking sound just like those clickers that they had to make you get up and down when you were kneeling
Uh huh.
in the church. And so whenever they would, I had one of those, and whenever they would hit the clicker to make us kneel down, I'd hit the one that I had, and everybody would stand up again, and then they'd do it again, and they were going up and down, and they were looking, trying to figure out who was doing who was doing that.
Yeah, just having a little fun. That's all.
I got in so much trouble for that.
Yeah. Well,
That's fun.
but what, you have a good story out of it, and a good memory about it. It's
True that, yeah. But there was a sister that we called her Sister Maria Raposa was her name, and she was this Italian girl, and she was fairly young, but she thought it was hysterical. She thought it was funny. She told, don't tell the rest of the sisters, but I thought that was hysterical.
yeah. It's yeah. There was a couple of nuns that were really nice. There was my third grade nun was not nice at all. No.
Yeah, some of them are tough.
Yeah, she just hated people, and it was weird because I had a
Or she
rough.
became a nun.
Well, she hated men. I mean,
Yeah.
she because she always hit the boys, never discipline, not physically discipline the girls.
That's
So it was. I had a hard time. Like after I got out of Catholic school, that school had closed when I was in third grade, and then I went on to another school, and there were ex nuns there, and integrated with other teachers,
yeah.
and my seventh grade teacher, Miss Francis China, she was an ex nun, and she was one of the best teachers. Like she would like get us singing, like she would like we had to make. I'll never forget this. We had to make musical instruments,
Wow.
right?
That's
She's
cool.
and you couldn't. She's like, okay, you get. So we're gonna have we're gonna do a concert. That's what she said to us. So she was always singing and always teaching us to sing, and whether it was songs from the gospel, out of the Bible, or if it was just music, and but she was
Yeah.
always having fun with it, and so we had to make our own instruments, and we put on a concert at the school.
That's very cool, though.
But and it's funny, this conversation right now, I haven't thought about that since seventh grade. Like I've never talked about that. I never even it was never even thought in my mind, and I just yeah, that just this brought that
It's
out.
funny how that happens with stuff when you talk about, that happens to me a lot. I'll meet somebody I've never even met before, and they start talking about something, and then you flash back to something that was that meant something to you in your life, but you had completely forgotten about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
mean, I was thinking about when we were talking about the nuns that don't like people that were nasty. I remember, yeah, Matt Dillon, the actor. He's edgy. This
yeah,
he was an edgy kid when he was young, and I remember we were talking about that stuff too because he dealt with the same kind of stuff. And then he says, "Yeah, that's why they're called nuns." He says, "They never got none. They're not getting any now, and they're never gonna get none."
yeah. This is true.
And I just flashed on that while we were talking about it because I haven't thought about that never forever.
Yeah, it's funny. There's certain things that trigger your memories, and maybe the reason we did this to talk tonight was to trigger some of these memories that we've had. Um,
Oh, that's a good thing.
you know, absolutely. Like I and I, again, uh, this the conversation, these talks like this, where you can open up and this is a no judge free. There's no
You're
judgment.
very good at this too. I mean, it's like it's just a great conversation as opposed to feeling interviewed. I
Yeah.
just feel like it's a great conversation. Once I feel like I've known you forever. It's like great.
Well, even I had talked to Cornell the other day on the phone, and he's like, "Oh, did you connect with Kevin?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "We were on the phone for like 20 minutes." I
Yeah, I guess we did talk longer than probably I usually do. So
yeah,
that's
and again, I was comfortable, and again, shout out to Cornell for making these talks
yeah.
happen.
He's the man.
He's again great person, and you know it's this energy that I him and I talk about this, like there's a positive energy that him and I have, and another artist that he represents, Ricardo, that he's doing.
Ricardo. I know Andy really well.
And Andy and I had a Andy and I had a fantastic conversation.
Andy's a great guy.
His microphone, he was having issues on his end, so it
I
was.
had to listen to it. It was like a lot of it was like mine, right? It was like the beginning of my show.
Yeah, it was tough. He was having connection issues, but hey, this is the beauty of doing this, because it's raw, it's real.
Live.
Yeah, we're live. Like you.
Not Memorex.
Yep. You go on stage and you plug in. You're live. Whatever you're getting, you're getting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I like doing them like this, because I don't ever, I don't want to edit it. I don't want to cut pieces out and add sound bites in. I'm like,
Cool.
and because I feel like I'm trying to represent you, the person I'm having the conversation with, for who you are, not necessarily all the accomplishments and things that, but I want to get to know a person, and
Yeah.
you know I that's what I strive for with this whole thing, and
I think you're very successful at it.
I appreciate that, and that means a lot, because this has been this has been like a talk that I've had for a little over maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years, at the start of COVID, and it just
Cool.
it kind of manifested and turned into something, and it was like, and then certain pieces started falling into place, and
Yeah.
once the pieces all started to line up, and then everything just, again, that positive energy, the positive connections that you make with people, and there's something to be said about that, surrounding yourself with positive people, and people that are of the same mindset as you too, that aren't
Yeah.
afraid to work, that aren't afraid to get out there, and you got to do what you got to do,
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but
So listen, before we end and I forget to ask, I want to just out of curiosity, because I know that you said that you read about me and stuff like that. You looked up some stuff, but you've heard the song "Down Home
I
Georgia"?
have, and it's funny because my son's friend, who plays guitar, the kid
Yeah.
that does the open mic nights, he came over the other night, and I said, "Hey, let's check out this song." And he's like, "Yeah, actually, I remember when this song came was on the radio."
Wow.
I said, "Okay, cool." And he's 18, so
Wow.
but he's plugged in. He loves music, and that's what I love about that kid is he absolutely loves music. So but no, it's the song's fantastic, and I
Thank you,
think
man.
when
I just wanted to see. I wanted your opinion on it because I wrote it when I was a kid, so it's
I would have never even known that if you didn't mention that you wrote that when you were 14 years old, I would have never even known that because it's a
I wasn't an average 14-year-old, I guess, anyways. But it's just something written from a truth. We used to. My dad was in the army in basic training in Georgia, and my mom went down there and stayed with him. They had just gotten married, and I wasn't born for 13 years, but when I was born, and every year thereafter, we would go down and spend time there for like 2 or 3 weeks a year, and I got close with the friends that they had as kids, um, and looked so forward to seeing them and being down there. And one year when I was recording, and I was over in Germany, and I was sitting on the roof of the studio, and some of the other guys had gone out, and I just didn't feel like going out that night. And I was sitting on the roof of the studio, and I was looking up at the stars in the sky and thinking that they were down there and they were looking up at the same stars, probably morning, and they probably weren't. But and I wrote the song,
that's awesome.
and yeah, I it was something. It's a place that I've always held dear. Although there's a lot of craziness going on down there now, but still, it's Savannah especially is a beautiful place. If you've never been there, it's worth a go to.
Yeah, I'd like to get down to one of our friends' sister lives down in Georgia, down by Savannah. Um,
It's beautiful. Have you been here ever?
it's funny. I've never been to California.
You haven't. It's an interesting place too. I mean, I live. You probably heard helicopters go by a few times.
I did. I heard some background that yes.
Yeah, I live at like on off PCH, so I live right across the street from the beach. Um, on the edge of, I live in Pacific Palisades, but right on the edge of Malibu, and
Oh, nice.
so at times at night you hear the waves big time.
Oh, that's awesome. Nothing like
During,
falling asleep to that.
oh, it's beautiful. Sometimes though it's weird. Sometimes the chandelier shakes and stuff. I'm at the high tide,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, but it's also calming to me. But the police and whatnot are always going up and down in the lifeguards or whatever. If there's sharks or whatever out there, they're running up and down in helicopters. There's more helicopters here than anywhere, I swear. And so that's what was going on there. But and then my room, the guy I rent to, my roommate came home while we were talking too. I don't know if you heard any of that, but
Yeah, I heard him in the background talking. Hey, you know what? That's all part of the live show. You're gonna have that.
yeah, he was talking to somebody else on the phone. I didn't, I was still, I just, in fact, I'm going to have to tell him afterwards that we were doing this because he probably thought I just ignored him.
Yeah,
But it's really interesting conversation. I've enjoyed it a lot. I guess we could probably talk forever, but
yeah. We're coming up on so with this live thing it is I'm limited to 2 hours, and We're on air right now for an hour and 54 minutes. This time around,
Oh shit!
yeah. Well,
That's gonna be a world record for me, man.
well, and again, this is. I feel you and I connected. Like you and I have a connection. And maybe it's because you're from Massachusetts too.
Could be. Could be. I packed my car and have it yet.
Yeah.
No, I parked my car in Worcester, Mass.
Yeah. But
I
in the,
miss Massachusetts. I haven't been there in years, and I miss it. I mean,
well,
I think it's one of those places that when you're from there, or when you've just been there, you miss it. It's
there is something to be said about this state. Like I feel like
great state.
it's just a great, like where we live. We're fortunate, and we have you know the kids all had a good upbringing, and there was there's no crazy, not the craziness we have now. You know, there was still craziness, but not like it
Yeah,
is now. Yeah.
yeah. It's that's one of the things I've been debating on is to end my show right before I play down home Georgia. To ask everybody to, because we're so divided now, that to do me a favor and turn to the person next to you and hug them, shake their hand, kiss them, whatever you feel like doing. But and just say peace and love, like Ringo always says.
Yeah, well, you know
Um,
what?
but you know what? You can in the kind of music, especially that I'm playing now, you can get in a lot of trouble for getting politically.
And that's again, you know, the older rock and country musicians that paved the way. They were pushing boundaries and being. You have to respect, And I may not agree with everybody politically. I may not agree with everybody with however you, but I respect you, and I respect your decision this because again, this is your show. You're up on the stage. You're putting yourself up in front of people, being very vulnerable and being very open.
Yeah,
And the respect that they should give you is, hey, you know what? I respect you for your opinion. I may not agree with it, but I respect you. And
absolutely. That's what I think anyway. But I remember my listening to Elvis and talking. When he was asked a question like that about politics, and his response was like, "I'm just an entertainer. And, I don't. I just respect that anybody has the right to vote for whoever they want, and I respect their decision to do so." And I thought that was the greatest answer I've ever heard.
yep, because it doesn't put you on either side of a political, the political side. And that's the thing, is like it's so it's shit. It's all shit right now. Like it's
Yeah,
been shit. I disconnect from it. I put on the TV for
it's
news.
hard sometimes, though, isn't it?
What's that?
It's hard though sometimes to get away from it
It
and
is
just
because it's ingrained in
especially when
our.
you got kids and grandkids because you're afraid what's coming next.
I am, and I just hope that I hope I can be there for them. I hope
I
if they
hope.
need me for anything, I can be there for them, and if they need advice, I'm there for them. And I think now more than ever, family coming together, having talks like this,
Yeah,
this to me this is healing. If more of these types of talks happened and people connected on a level like this, and had talks like, we'd be in a lot better place.
yeah, I think that's true. I mean, the lack of communication is a big part of what causes this stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny. This brings to mind another one of those things Christopherson told me that out of the Highwaymen, he respected them all and really liked them all, but the one guy that didn't like him too much because they were politically polar opposites was Waylon.
Oh, really?
And where Waylon was kind of the king of the outlaws or the first outlaw,
Yeah.
that surprised me actually. That he would get like that, where he told Willie that he should he didn't even think they should keep Chris in the band.
Well, that's too bad. And you know what? Hopefully, hopefully he made peace with that. Because
I hope so, because he's, I mean, Chris, that guy's had a rough time. I mean, his parents were, his father and his grandfather were all like colonels and generals, and and when he decided to go to Nashville and be a songwriter and work as a janitor at Columbia Records, um, his parents never talked to him again.
really,
And even when he told me, even when he got the thing in Washington with the president and everything, where they go to I forgot what it's called now. They do it at like the Lincoln Center or something like that, or the Kennedy Center, whatever. It's one of those. And yeah, he said that he called his mother. It was the first time that he talked to her in years, and said that they were going to do this honor for him in Washington, and he wanted her. I think the father was already dead.
mm-hmm.
He wanted her to come, and she said something like, "I lost my son a long time ago."
Horrible.
And she didn't come. I mean, I could never. I don't. I mean, I may not agree with things with my kids all the time, but I could never do that.
Yeah. No, and
the greatest gift to me that God's ever given me in this life is my kids and my grandkids and my family, just family.
Family. Yep.
That's everything.
Yep.
If that's all you ever have, you've had it all, brother.
And I'm fortunate. You and I have talked, and I have 4 kids, and again, and
That's great.
Yeah, it is, and
I love that now, that especially that you told me afterwards that was your daughter that was on.
Yeah, she. Oh my God.
I like what she said. She was funny.
Yeah, well, she gets that for me because I sometimes people take me the wrong way when I'm joking, and it's like I was just
That's an East Coast thing.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it definitely is, and it's definitely a Massachusetts.
Especially.
Yes, like we're pretty good at that.
Yeah, the Brits are like that too. Like I was talking to my friend Phil. He's from New York, so he gets all this shit. But we were talking about how I just saw one of the Ringo concerts, and someone yelled up at him, "You look great, Ringo." And he said, "Oh, thank you." And he says, I got to tell you what that means coming from you. Nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it just me that, like, because I was thinking, like, when he said that, because I know how he is. He's a wonderful guy. And it's just part of his humor.
Yeah, he's joking.
Like, yeah, but that's like, I'm sure, like, if that guy was of the same humor,
yeah,
he probably thought that he was being rude, and he's not that guy,
Yeah, and that's he's up there having a good time, and again, your emotions sometimes when you're doing stuff like that, they come out, and
absolutely,
you don't know how to.
Absolutely. It's anyways, I'm probably gonna have to cut out here, but listen, really great talking to you and getting to know you as well, and yeah, maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, no, Kevin, there's so much stuff that we didn't even talk about, and I wanted to talk about your
surface.
Yeah, we did, and we'll definitely do this again, and and when you get on the road, and if you're able to do shows, I'm definitely going to come out and see you, and
that'd be great, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I enjoy what you're doing. I enjoy your story. I appreciate your story. And I appreciate you for coming on here, and you opened up, and we talked about a lot of stuff that that people, and I hope people can, connect with what we were talking about, and put a positive spin on things.
It was pretty positive for the most part.
Sure, and that's what we want. Hey, you're going to have a little bit of dirt up in there, and a little bit of. It's going to get gritty, but that's all part of conversation.
True dirt.
Yeah. Well, again, I truly appreciate you for coming on here, and
I appreciate you having me. Thank
you. Everybody go check out Kevan Michaels. His album's going to hopefully be coming out soon.
Well, yeah, hopefully. I've got to finish the songs first.
Yep.
I got to finish the recording of them.
Okay.
But,
So we have
and
something to look
they're
forward to.
all mostly from the older part of my life. So, like, anything I do after that will probably be all new stuff. But
Well, we look forward to hearing that from you. We look forward to hearing your story through music. And again, I appreciate you for coming on here, and thank you.
well, thank you for having me again, man. And stay in touch. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch. And if you ever feel like if you ever get out this way, we'll link up and we'll have a coffee or sit down and have a conversation with none of this stuff.
Fun to do a face to face one, yeah.
Yeah. No, it would be good. It's good stuff. All right.
Very cool. All right. Hey, thanks again and for having me. And yeah, take it easy, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, we'll catch you on the road.
All right. Thanks, brother.
All right, have a good night. We'll see you, Kevin. Bye-bye. That was Kevan Michaels. Beautiful talk, beautiful person. Want to thank everybody for tuning in to Chewy's Road to Enlightenment. I apologize for the first little segment there before we went live for the first half hour. We had a little issue, but it was all good. And, had a really good conversation with Kevin. Everybody go check him out. Show him some love. Go on YouTube. Follow him on Instagram. He's on Facebook. Kevan Michaels, Kevan Michaels. You can check out his song. He's streaming Down Home, Georgia. It's a beautiful song, beautiful piece. He did a great job. Wrote it when he was 14. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in, and have a great night. Be kind to each other. Love one another. Lift somebody up. Open up a door for somebody. Buy somebody a coffee. Say good morning. Say thank you. And if you want to, you can give somebody a hug because maybe they need it. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.